Hello, I'm the Guitar Geek, and with me today on Geeking Out With, I've got Mr. Gavin Downie. Hello, Gavin.
Hey, how's it going?
It's very well, thank you. We're doing this full start because we've already been chatting for about half an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is take 2 of the introduction. But Gavin is a man who has met many people, played guitar and teched guitar for some of the greats, and he's the guy that makes all the concerts possible. He's one of those sort of behind-the-scenes kind of men. Am I getting it somewhere close?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm pretty much unknown, but at most of the shows, and the people on the side of the stage that people forget about pretty quickly. But, you know, we're the integral part of the mechanics to keep it all going and go to city after city and show after show and keep rolling out as they mean to.
Okay, let's go straight with the name dropping. Who have you worked with?
Who have I worked with? Seether, the Cranberries, Gomez, Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings, Mavis Staples, Steve Earle, Justin Townsend, Ed Kowalczyk, Strung Out, No Use for a Name, Lagwagon, Me First and the Gimme Gimmes, No Effects, Pennywise, Alkaline Trio. I can't remember them. Like, I'm just
going to take a little break while you carry on.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, these are bad. Like, obviously, I'm based in New Zealand, so I work with a lot of New Zealand bands. But then I work in and out of the country and work on different festivals and stuff. So, I've worked with like Deftones when they've come through New Zealand. I've worked with the Shins. I've worked with Rodriguez from that Searching for Sugar Man documentary. Done a few tours with him. Death by Stereo, the Misfits. Michelle Shocked, Leon Russell. I worked with a really good jazz xylophone player. I can't remember his name now. Real famous. He's really good. He came to New Zealand. Yeah, I think that's probably so far what I can think of.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to fade the video out and say like something like 10 minutes later, then fade back in, and you're still reading off all these wonderful names. So we met on the internet. We've not met in real life yet, being that you're in New Zealand and I'm in Austria.
Yeah.
But we have a mutual love for guitars and the music scene.
And just humanity in general.
Yeah, we're nice guys.
Yeah.
And the other chats that I've done with other people have had a very natural flow because they have a product or products that they're selling or that they make. But the chat today is going to be a little bit different because we just kind of an excuse for me to fanboy out on the bands that you've worked with and the experience you have that sort of puts people like me to shame. It's really it's an honor to talk to you. And
a job that tends to be around some pretty cool musicians sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes musicians. But, you know,
yeah.
But it's a very good job. I'm not going to sell it down. It was my dream job, and I did it for a number of years. And you know, I'm currently not doing it at the moment, and I miss it every day. But it's a tough industry.
You did a gig recently, last Saturday.
Did a gig on Saturday, yeah. I did local friends band. Now, I've shifted kind of careers presently for the time being, and it's kind of given me the ability to go and do one-off shows for friends and be able to do shows and, you know, not have to charge people for them, especially when they can't afford, you know, like support bands and stuff who are barely getting paid. So I did a show on Saturday with an amazing local band called City of Souls, who everyone should check out. They're like just incredible, absolutely amazing. They're kind of like a hard rock melodic. I don't even know what kind of genre they would be, but they're just really good. So I went and did the show with them, and they were playing with Limp Bizkit, Sublime, and Head PE at this kind of metal hard rock festival here. So I kind of, as well, it was kind of a bit of a double take because my friend is an American friend of mine, techs for Limp Bizkit at the moment, so it was kind of a good reason to better go and see him and hang out with him for a while side of stage. So, you know, as you would kind of expect, like lots of road crew become friendly with other road crew when you're on and festivals and stuff together. So when people come through town, you know, you'll go and see other road crew rather than go and see bands. So you might just go to a show just to hang out with the guitar techs, and that's kind of super nerdy, but that's kind of what you do because you've seen bands so many times, you kind of would rather just talk about what the new tuner thing he has, or what she's using on side of stage, or if she's got a new cable that's really exciting. And so yeah, we all pretty much uber nerd out real fast.
I'll stop it, man. Talking about gadgets and gizmos and
that's the bonus of the job, is you get instant access to new, unreleased, rare, one-offs, never before seen things that you just melt over. One day you might be touring or doing a show with a band, and you open up all their road cases and their 1950s Les Pauls, or the next day you open up a case for a different band and they've got 2 new ESP signatures that haven't been released yet, and they're like, oh, we're just trying them out on this tour. And so yeah, it's exciting. You get I remember having the dudes there was an American company called Crank that made amps, and they came out to a show once and were asking me what I thought. And I was like, I don't really like this shelving EQ thing on this. And it's like really cool to be able to talk to people because they talk directly to you. So that's the bonus of the job. If you love gear, becoming a tech is like an uber cool job because it's just surrounded by gear, surrounded by it. From the minute you wake up to taking stuff back to your hotel room to tune stuff in, fix stuff, or, if you get a bit of new gear, a lot of the times you'll have guitarists that'll buy something and they won't know what it is, so they give it to you and go tell me what it does. You figure it out, and then tomorrow you tell me what, I just want it to do this, and you tell me. So you spend all night with manuals going, oh, wow, it does this. And, after 1 hour's sleep, you take the box back and you go, it does that delay sound you want. It's what it is. So. Yeah.
So you sound like a tone butler.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like I think there's different aspects of what I was doing a lot of the time was guitar teching. So for people that don't know that's those people that stand on the side of the stage with the big racks full of guitars, and when the trucks arrive at the beginning of the show, you take the gear out while other people might be setting up the drums or the lights or the audio. You're taking out the guitars and the basses or the instruments and cleaning them, restringing them, checking them if they need repaired, getting them ready, and then basically setting up the band's rigs, and then getting ready once the band sound checks. And then if the band has changeovers, so they might do a song that's on acoustic, so you'll have an acoustic ready and switch those out, retune the guitar that needs done, or they might break a string. It's kind of like a pit crew for a band. If you've seen those people on Formula One races that run in and fix stuff, it's pretty much what we're like, but we don't get the cool suits. We're like hidden in black off the corner. So some shows you might be doing, you may just be working in the role of tune it, plug it in, give it to them, come back. If you're doing one-off shows, you're doing a small amount of runs where the band's kind of locked in with what they're doing. Other times you'll have bands or guitarists you'll work with, and they'll come to you one night, and they may either be in a position where they'll be like, oh, we've decided we're going to play an old song with the gear we don't have. Can we find something? We need to add a new sound into the pedal board or the amp selection. Or you have bands that are working or looking for a new sound or something. So they'll come to you and ask your advice on the gear that may get that sound or that tone. And generally, I think, what makes a lot of us good guitar techs, I'd say that, big header, but we're just constantly up to date on what's going on and what's going out and what's being released and what's being talked about. So, pretty much my inbox every morning is just full of subscriptions to gear and amp stuff, and it's just constantly, ticking over. So you have to know what's out there. You have to know, all the gear that's around, because you need to know at one point, can you go to a store and get that box that does that sound that you need to that show? Or if the band suddenly turns up, or they land, or you get into a city and a box has been left behind, or something's broken, if that one pedal that makes the whole sound is broken that day, how can you replace it with something out of a shop? So you have to know to be able to walk in and go, well, if I take that drive pedal or I take that pedal and I either use two of them, I can kind of get through that show for the night. So yeah, it's really, as much as it is about the mechanics of what makes the gear work, it's heavily about the tonality of what makes the gear work and what changes, When you're constantly, during the show, you're listening in a way, it's kind of how to describe, you basically train your brain to dissect what you're hearing, and your brain filters out the instruments that you're not working for. So if you're a guitar tech, you base your brain, without doing it, if you're just listening without in-ears, like if you're just a normal show, you will just basically turn down all the rest of it, so you'll just hear that guitar. And that sounds really weird, but you'll notice as soon as the guitar changes, or if something drops, or if he hits a pedal and the volume drops, or if it suddenly sounds like as he goes higher up the neck, it's getting too sharp, you know the intonation's out, and you know as soon as you get a chance, you can flip that guitar out, intonate it during the show, and get it back to them. So you do physically, mentally train your brain to work in a way that you just are set up to look at that instrument. And if you're doing multiple instruments, so like if some days I might be guitar teching, so I can kind of just listen to those. If I'm drum teching, I'll be listening to, how drums sound. If drums are sounding too ringy, I can listen for an overtone, or if there's feedback coming from somewhere. So, and those are kind of same as engineers can listen to a PA and hear a frequency or a feedback that's, it's your ear. You train your brain and you train your ears to that. So, and that's what differentiates the great techs that keep getting work and the guys that think it's just a cool way to kind of travel around the world and party. So once you kind of realize that, there's a lot more involved.
And I'm sold. If you're recruiting, then I'm in. Where do I sign?
It's a great job. Like even when it's bad, it's good, because if it's a bad day, it's something you can learn from. Like it's either bad because the gear's broken down and you know that bit of gear has a certain amount of longevity, or it doesn't like being treated that way, or you know that this is stuff we have to fix that for tomorrow, or a lot of the time if you're doing your job, the bad things are not your fault. If you've got drunk and you turn up to work late and you didn't restring the guitar and all the strings break off, then it's a bad day and it's your bad day, and you learn that you shouldn't drink till that time in the morning, or you should spend more time on it. But generally it's you're always kind of learning about just the different limitations of things, and you can just have a bad day because your guitar player turns up and he's really hungover and he's having a shit day and he wants to throw his toys. But it always it's never just a switch on and go to work and close your brain off.
No, it's I have a couple of questions from what you've said. First one is the one that comes to mind is, how is the music scene in New Zealand, or not just New Zealand, but I get the feeling it's changed over the past few years.
It's changed drastically, which is some reason why I'm not full-time in the teching world as I was, and in the production world. To preface this answer, I'll kind of give you a bit of a short timeline. I was a musician, played in bands, did a bit of studio engineering, wrote some crappy TV ads, ended up working in bars to supplement my musical income, in the bands. Ended up working too long in bars, couldn't really devote that much time to bands anymore, got sick of that, quit, wanted to become a guitar tech. There wasn't really an industry for it at that time in New Zealand. There was really only, I think, a guy, John Walsh, who was Neil Finn's guitar tech, and there was, I think, maybe one or two others that could barely make a living.
What year are we talking, roughly?
This is 2000, 2000. It was a really tough industry. There wasn't people that would there was really only, like, Neil Finn's guitar tech was really the only kind of full-time guitar tech person, because could make that as living. But the other kind of people that might have been techs were like sound people, or they were other jobs they would fill in, and there wasn't a lot of high production touring sort of going on. There was lots of just put stuff in a van and get to the next thing and unload your PA. But round about then, the production levels started to really maximize in New Zealand. So tours were going out with bands who were taking out sound people, taking a truck full of PA, taking a guitar tech. Well, back then I would kind of do everything. It'd be guitars, drums, keys, bass, everything. So it was kind of changing then, and it became a much better industry to work in because there was a lot more work. And then sort of generally over the years, the industry, with the collapse around about early 2000s, mid 2004, 2005, the kind of collapse of the whole recording industry in the record sales format, that changed a lot of how people approach music, and it put a lot of fear into musicians because a lot of them were thinking they had to rely on this big pool of money they were getting. So things took a little bit of a shift then, and people got a little bit worried. But then more recently, it's just become, recording is not quite a pointless thing, but it's gone back to how it was in the 50s, where you record a CD as a promotional tool to sell tickets to your live show, not doing live shows to sell a billion CDs to make record companies rich. So in that fact, it's a lot of people that were sitting quite comfortably doing things are all shaken up. The record companies are all having a hard time struggling, trying to keep up with the digital world, and musicians are having to tour a lot more to capitalize on their careers, and now you see the influx of large major touring companies like AIG and Live Nation, who have now taken over the whole world. Like, they're now buying up promoters locally, and they're buying up venues. So in the past, where I might have worked for a local promoter and worked for them, now I would be working for an Australian based company. And then some of the work that I was doing, after a while I started doing production management work, which is the sort of the logistics of putting tours together, either coming into New Zealand or going out of New Zealand. And then a lot of that work was being shipped offshore, like to Australia, to the Australian head office. So the work that I was doing was suddenly changing. So the whole industry has gone through this kind of shake-up. And in every way, musicians are just reliant now on live touring, and the live touring market is getting quite saturated. So it's a good time. It's a good time to be a fan, but it's a bad time because prices are getting expensive, like ridiculously high.
Definitely.
And for crew people, it's getting really tough because the big companies want to pay less and less, and they want more and more out of you for certain things. So that's why at the moment I'm kind of working in a different industry for the time being and just doing part-time music stuff.
What are you doing currently? What's the day job?
I work for a PR company, and I'm their production manager. So I kind of the same. I put on the event, so I'm kind of dealing with the same kind of elements that go into an event. But instead of putting a band on stage, I might have a new BMW M5 on stage, or I might have the new beer that's being marketed by a company, or the new Samsung phone. So it's definitely not rock and roll, but it pays the bills. So,
as you said, it allows you to do those gigs for friends.
Exactly. Yeah.
And if the business is in a state of flux at the moment, then you got to do what you got to do.
It's like that globally. Like everyone, I have a lot of friends that work around the world, and in the backside, the backstage, the back end of the business. It is the backside end of the business, I'll be honest, Some days it's the complete backside. And they're all saying the same things. Like, I've got a friend that works for Steve Earle, and now he said there's a lot of managers who are booking, crew and stuff for their tours, where in the place before you would hire a sound guy and a production guy and a tour manager, they're now saying the sound guy / tour manager job is going. So the sound guy has to also be the tour manager, which means you've got to look after the band 24/7 and make sure that they get to hotels, get to their interviews, get to the restaurants with the record company, as well as being at the venue, doing the sound, getting the mic set up, getting the PA checked, doing a sound check, and and it's a lot of, like, my friends who are sound engineers going like, well, you just can't do that job. You can't be both 100%. But managers are now looking at where they can cut money to make more money over here, because the live industry is sort of so fickle that no one can guarantee where the dollar's coming from tomorrow. And with the advent of this modern culture where you can create an artist overnight, pick some kid from the internet, make them a star, get them around the world within a week on a tour, hire some musicians, hire a songwriter, and you're competing against that, everyone is terrified, and you'll notice now that there's the artists who are still playing are kind of having to happily play now the smaller and smaller clubs, I remember seeing bands that I would have seen in arenas or stadiums, then arenas, and now I'm seeing them in, 500-seater kind of little, small, tiny club, kind of pub almost, environment. So it's crazy. So it's in a state of change, and I don't know if it'll never go back to what it was, because the whole world has shifted, and the music industry sadly was the most behind the times when it came to modernization, and it was stuck with this really old school idea of sign up to a record label, they will give you some money, they will con you into this contract where you'll never make any money, and basically you'll just be stuck to them for 7 years, and they will push your career. Whereas there's a lot of people that are saying it's the best thing ever, that artists now have freedom to do what they want, and that's great, but sometimes it's a catch-22. There's a lot of bands that wouldn't have got anywhere without that big injection of money from the record label. There's some bands that shouldn't have got anywhere because they got injection from record labels and they were pushed, and but it's just totally different. So if you're coming into the industry now, if you're coming into this industry now and this is all you know, it's probably safe. If you're a 30, 40-year-old musician that's still trying to kick in, still waiting for that kind of break, that's terrifying and that's bad. It's just, that kind of method of how everyone used to do it, practicing lots, playing, just doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Everyone's putting stuff on YouTube. Everyone's waiting to be picked up. Everyone wants to jump on, America's Got Talent or those kind of programs. It's just changed how we've made art not even a commodity, a disposable thing. So, which is how we've kind of generally tended towards everything these days. Film is almost a disposable thing. We churn out so many of these, like, say, Marvel things. It's like, and now we don't even make new movies. We just rehash old movies and it's just like, oh, it's another version of this. It's another version of this. So that's where we've got to, and it's working in that environment, even though we're still at the core doing the same thing. The world that we're living and interacting in the music industry is completely upside down, and it may never find its feet. There may never be feet again. We may just stay in this weird chasm of self-promoted artists who can barely make a living, going back to touring in a van and doing that. And and you're either in the kind of the mafia group of the big live nations, or you're really on the other side trying to push against it. And as they buy up more and more venues and, their feelers go further and further out, it will become tougher for some musicians just to even get into clubs. But it's inspiring, isn't it?
I'm not so sold. I've gone completely full circle now. I want to go and get a day job.
Yeah.
No, it's really interesting here. I can relate to a lot of what you're saying about the musicians who have been in the old system and are now having to acclimatize to the new system. I was one of the musicians. I was in my late teens when the Napster thing happened and when the whole sort of thing just went, whoa! And I got to that nasty record deal stage and just got dropped. I think it was 2 weeks. We were in talks. We were just about to sign. And then it literally broke sort of in those 2 weeks. It broke with Napster. And there could be people watching this who don't even know what Napster is. But,
that's what early internet days.
That was when this wasn't possible, what we're doing right now. But yeah, it's so interesting to go as a punter as well to these gigs and see the people doing this tour manager and sound engineer job.
Yeah.
And just feeling, because I'm sort of geeking out at concerts, I spend more time watching you guys than I do watching the concert some of the time.
Like it's getting, like, I think it's getting down to everyone's looking at bottom lines now. The bands are looking at bottom lines. The bands are hiring managers and accountants so they can step away from looking at the bottom lines, and they're looking at bottom lines. Like I don't think it's any secret, but it's a friend of mine that used to work for a band, Muse. They're quite well English band.
So you just cut out when you said that.
There's a friend of mine that used to work for a band called Muse. They're that English rock electro kind of band. Don't really know much about them myself, but and they were touring a lot of big shows at the time, and they were a big budget band, but they'd just changed their management, I think, and they'd basically come in and looking at every way to try and cut money. But the managers, because they didn't really come from the internals of the music business on that side of the tour, they would just look at a cost, and if a cost was $10,000 too much, they would just want to strike it. So they were like, having this extra container on the road every day is costing us something like 12,000 euros, so we need to cut it out. We only want to be touring with like 10 containers, not 11. And that one container was all the spares. Now, if you're a band where all of your gear is digital and it breaks easy and you're getting it at thrashing, you need to have spares. On the road, if something is so important that you can't play without it, you have 4 of them. Because you never know when you're going to be able to get a spare, and if the spare goes down or the spare goes down, you have another one. And they were just told, like, ditch the container, go in there, pick whatever you want out of it that you're going to keep, and tomorrow we're sending the container home. And, and that's the kind of thinking that happens. But when you're the kind of crew, and then suddenly it's like when something breaks down and the band's like, why do we have, it's like, the bottom lines. And the same kind of thing, they were spending too much money on a local storage place for all their gear post-tour, and they found a cheaper place that was like 2.5 hours away. So they moved all the stuff 2.5 hours away. But then their guy that manages that, they had to pay him to drive. When someone like Matt Bellamy said, I need a guitar out of storage, he would have to drive for 2.5 hours, get it, come back. So they were kind of spending more in the end run than what they were to beginning with. And this is what happens with a lot of this modern industry is, as people are trying to look where they're cutting, they're not seeing what exactly it is they're cutting. They're just looking at figures, and it's like cut. And half the time,
do you not think it's when people from, as you said, from outside of the music business, say managers and money makers, they get into the music business, who may have had training in business but not in music business, or not the experience of. I wanted to ask you about that you can now.
I could tell you.
Sorry.
So just to quickly go back on that, like one of the things I've noticed here, and I think it's happening around the world, is as the music recording industry is collapsing, people from that industry are stepping out and going into band manager kind of roles because they know the industry. But the mechanics of selling a CD is a lot different than what you actually have to do to keep the band and the machine rolling and all of that facets. In New Zealand, it's been somewhat detrimental, as some people have thought they could just shift from, pushing units one day to trying to manage bands. And we've seen them. And in New Zealand, there was one case where there was one artist who was just ripped off so much, $300,000. And in New Zealand, for a small solo artist, that's almost, that's a good 5 years worth of income. And he was just ripped. And it's, people that have just come from another part of the industry that would just, it's really hard these days to know who to trust. But, everyone believes if you come from selling CDs that you should, you can manage a band, but it's not the case. It's a different thing.
It's different people skills for a start. And it's, from what I've worked with bands, it's people skills is right up there with the ability to tune a guitar, for example. What I wanted to ask you was that there's so many more people now these days. It's a very general term, but there's more of us people. And
7 more last count.
At least 7. Yeah. And I was thinking about all these courses you can do at university and stuff, and in Austria there's a music, not school, but it's part of, and you can do these.
I think SAE or something.
Yeah, I wasn't going to mention it, but yes, you're right.
I was a tutor at SAE here for a couple of years. So
okay, well, what's your opinion on all that?
What's my view on them?
Yeah, what's your view?
I'll give you 2 answers.
Please.
I think it's great that you can go somewhere and learn about that. That's amazing but will that get you a job in the industry? Not at all. You have no greater chance of getting in the industry than the person that's never done it, that just has a good work ethic. Because it doesn't matter what you walk out with, how many bits of paper, there's real world experience and there's learned experience. It's learning the back end of, what makes a microphone tick, what a waveform does, what a frequency difference thing is, learning a bit of the gear. That makes a difference. But if you go to, like, say, a live PA company, they're not going to put you on a desk and send you out with, I don't know, Katy Perry that night. You're going to coil cables for the first 5, 6, 7 months, and you're going to push cases in and out of the truck until they know they can trust you, until they know you work with people, and then they'll see and go, okay, have you got the skills to go and do that? And it's just, like when SAE was the first school in New Zealand that started doing the courses, and that was when I just left school. I was 15, 16, and we would have at least, this is back then when it was a smaller school, I worked in the daytime in a guitar store, and on the back of the building was a recording studio that was like huge. It was a real iconic studio. There's a lot of like the Flying Nun bands and the indie bands would record there, but we'd have lots of things, but it was really popular with that. So the kind of music I was into, everyone recorded there. So I got to meet all these amazing bands. But we would continuously have people come in every week going, hi, I'm looking for studio work. I've just finished SAE. And they'd be like, well, what have you recorded? And they're like, well, I've done SAE. It's like, but what have you recorded? Who have you recorded? What have you live mixed? And it'd be like, I haven't done that. And then one guy once got a trial at the recording because one of the engineers had fallen sick. And the session took 3 times as long because they were like, go plug a mic in front of the guitar amp. So he was out there with his tape measure and this like protractor, like kind of, and he had his notebook from the school. And it's like, I'm like, that's all good. But in the real world, you put it out and you move it around till we're all kind of happy with what it wants to sound like. And and I was learning to engineer in the studio at nighttime. I would finish from the guitar shop and go next door, and I'd learn how to re-earth the desk and do stuff like that. But I was just kind of learning hands-on, and I totally had no idea what the kind of the mechanics of it was. But it was that was how you got experience, and that's getting that foot in the door to do that. So yes, it's great you can go and learn that stuff. It's great you can learn about the gear, but is there actual jobs in the industry? Not in this country. I mean, there's not anywhere. I know guys that'll send me an email saying, is there any tours going around New Zealand? I'm sitting in London and there's nothing on. Like, I'll come and work for a few months, or it's a tough market to compete in. So there's going to be a lot of people that have degrees that don't do anything. But at least some of them SAE have branched out now. They do a film course here, which is really good. That gets a lot of work in the industry. That a lot of people going in. They do an event live production thing, which I was tutoring on. I was doing live production, festival production, and a little bit on sort of promotion and stuff. But very few of those people would go out and kind of work. So, and I kind of tell them that. I was like, I'm honest, like the industry is tough. It's ridiculously tough. I know I could ring 10 of my friends today who are all top engineers, and maybe only 2 of them will be working somewhere today. So, with those kind of outpouring of large amounts of people into the marketplace, it'll be even tougher. But if you've got the drive, you'll do something, because if you're willing to eat instant noodles and sleep on a couch and drive a crappy old car, and you're willing to work 24 hours and coil cables and push flight cases and show that you're keen, then you'll do something. But just walking out going, I have this degree, where is my job? Like, that's just not going to happen. It doesn't happen. Yeah.
Sorry, guys, anyone watching this who is currently studying. But
but it's always good to, if you've got nothing else to do, like, go study. If you can afford it, go study. Some of the people in my classes, I could look at them and I could honestly tell the musicians, the people that wanted to do stuff, and the people that parents had obviously said, if you're not going to get a job and you've left school, you have to do something, go find a course, and they'll just go and do that. And they would just basically have no real intention to want to learn. So I'd just be like, if you don't want to, if you're not really into this, kind of sit at the back, or I'll sign you in and you can go home. I'm not really fussed. Like, I'd rather you did that than look at the class and people are just sitting on their phones. Like, it's like, but that's okay. That's just what's, there's some people I've taught that I've seen, like, what are you doing now? They're like, oh, I'm working in like the sports store. I'm like, you do anything with music? Nah, just, didn't really like music. I was like, well, that's all right. And there's some people that I know that have come out that have just been so driven that myself and other people will be like, oh, look, if you need someone, this kid's really good, this girl's really good, get her in, do this, just if you need an extra load or something, and we'll try and put them in where they try and further a bit of their career, and and they will at the same time, those kind of people with attitudes, they end up creating a bit of work for themselves. But there's no free lunch, there's no surefire fast track to working in this industry.
Well, it sounds like we could be talking about any industry, to be honest.
Exactly.
It's the modern job market, and as you're saying, the driven people, the passionate people, the people that are willing to do anything it takes, they're the ones that are going to succeed. And and it is a small finite industry. You look at
You look at any arena show. You go and see, I don't know, pick any band at random. You look at an arena show with, say, 20,000 people. There's only going to be, say, one main engineer. There's going to be his assistant. There'll be, it doesn't matter how big the show is. There's still only going to be one of those people. It's not like at a 500 people show there's a crew of 10 doing engineering, and the show of 20,000 there's 100 engineers. There's still only one engineer, and that whole tour they'll only do one engineer over 1,000 stops. So it's a crazy industry. Like a lot of businesses, as they grow, they will grow more people, but because you're still touring a very particular kind of size outfit, you might add all these extra people on, like the loaders and the riggers and people, but you're one engineer. And bands also generally don't like shifting a lot of things. So if your dream is to work with Fleetwood Mac, or your dream is to work with Muse or Katy Perry or Iron Maiden, until their guy that they love dies, like or he somehow breaks a limb, it's that's just it. They stick with the people they love, and it's you just wait and hope, or wait or something. But you may have to, if your dream is to mix Iron Maiden, you may have to get a job being Iron Maiden's patch guy, or plugging in the mics or cleaning something, so there are people that will do that, who will basically go, look, I'll take anything. I want to do this. I want to be on the road. This is where I feel comfortable. I'm willing to work long hours. Excuse me. And I'll do anything, and if I get a break, I'll get a break. But for some of the people that go, I only do front of house, I don't do monitors, I don't do this, and they'll be like, all right, see you later. When the front of house gig turns up in 50 years, we'll call you. And I know people that are like that. I have friends that will be monitor engineers or front of house, and I'll be like, can you do this monitor again? Like, I don't do monitors, I only do front of house. And it's like, you've kind of shot yourself in the foot there, because there's only so many gigs, and some days you might have to go do a monitor gig, but they will perceive different jobs in the industry as different importance or hierarchy, and it's not. There's no hierarchy. There's nothing. It's just that's your job, and every one of those people are as important. Like if the show starts and any one of those people goes to the toilet and gets locked in, shows stop. So it's just that way of thinking. It's
that rolled off your tongue. That rolled off your tongue as if that's happened to you.
Oh yeah. There's tragic things that happen. Like you get locked out of a building, you have to run somewhere. The guitarist goes, "Go get me this. I've left it in the dressing room," and you run out one door, and it's like the wrong door, and it's like, "Kung." You're like, "Fuck! Oh no! I've got to try and get my way back through the venue," and through one door, out one door, through the fire escape, over the back fence. Just These things happen.
Happened to me. Our bass player got kicked out of the Google headquarters in London.
Oh,
we
nice.
did a show there, and the security guy they changed shifts, so he went out for a smoke with the first guy, went to come back in with the second guy. No, and it was a glass door. It was like, well, hello.
Yeah, you can get stuck in some random weird places, or if you've happened, there's the kind of common one, fairly common one. It's like you might be doing you might be getting onto the show might be starting, and if you've got your lanyards and stuff on, and they're making lots of noise, you might take them off and put them on your guitar board or side of stage or on your monitor desk or something, and then you bolt off somewhere, and then you're trying to get backstage, and no one, you've got nowhere to prove who you are, and it's like, I'm kind of should be there, and you're furiously trying to text people going, hey, I'm over here, come and let me in, I can't get in, and I've got the guitarist acoustic and he left it in the dressing room. It's like, so there's certain things, but musicians always forget things, so you learn to be really fast. Even though I'm not athletic at all, when I need to get back to the dressing room or the tour bus, I'm haul ass, no one can stop me. I'm like an All Black, just boom through people. You're running back with guitars and things. So
I could sit here and I think I've said about 13 words the entire time, but I'm more than happy to just sit here and listen. But I'm staring at this camera, and I've realised that when this airs, half of the screen is going to be me staring at whoever's watching this.
That's kind of weird.
That is weird.
I try not to look at my own picture because it just starts to worry me.
I never know where to look. But can I hit you with some sort of quick fire questions?
Yeah, go with some questions because we've just rambled for way too long, I think.
I put some posts up on Facebook and in the Facebook group, and some friends of ours and also some people we don't know have asked if they can ask you some questions. I'm not sure if we're going to air. I'm not sure if I'll air all of these, but we'll go for quick fires. Here we go.
Keep them quick. All right.
Starting off, who was the most significant dickhead to work with?
Oh, Ed Kowalczyk from Live. That dude is the biggest piece of shit you've ever met in your life. He is a prime asshole. Like, he's a guy that when he was in Live, went behind his band and re-signed contracts that gave him all the ownership of the songs. He then, with his own manager, went to festivals and started charging them an appearance fee just for him to be there, even though they signed band contracts. And then, basically, the guy, I did a guitar tech for him, and I was thinking, okay, you know, I'm not a fan of his music, but that's okay. You're not always a fan. And I turned up, and their monitor guy, he was just treated like absolute crap, like abused, yelled at, stuff. I was like, why do you put up with this? He's like, he pays really well in the industry. Is right now it's impossible to get jobs. Like, it's tough. And I'm like, that's got to be horrible. And I went out to do a guitar change, and he did a song where he's playing guitar, and he plays guitar, and he stood on his cable and he pulled it out himself, and he just turns around and starts abusing me, and he yells at me to get up there, and he's like, fucking asshole, what the fuck's wrong with my guitar? I'm like, you fucking unplugged it, you dick. And he's like, fuck, and he picked up his tuner and threw it into the monitor world. I was like, this guy is an asshole. He's like, And then he stops and he does this whole, you know, it's really important in my heart that we give money to these starving Africans. So, like, I want y'all tonight to go and give $1 at the merchant. We can feed these children. And I'm like, this dude is just wrong. Yeah, he was horrible. I went on to do a guitar change later and deliberately, like, held the guitar slightly awkwardly away from him. I was just like, fuck this guy. Sorry, I'm not meant to swear, but yeah. I was like, I'll never work with him again. I don't care. Like, I really didn't care. And I was like, I'm going to take a stand for that dude that has to do this job again tomorrow. So yeah, he was seriously a piece of shit. Like,
well, I was expecting for you to sort of take some time and think, well, I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but
no way. Him. Hands down.
I really liked I Alone was like an anthem for a while for me, but then that's it. No. I'm deleting my Spotify playlist.
Do some research on him. Like, he did some shit to his bandmates that just was so absolutely disgusting and disrespectful.
Well, if he calls me tomorrow and asks to be on this show, I'm going to turn him down.
No, let it go, and then I'll get on as well.
Yes.
Like, hey,
remember me?
You're a piece of shit. Yeah. But yeah, there's very few people that are truly horrible people. Like, they're not. You'll get artists that are, once they get on stage, or once they're getting ready to go on stage, they're in the zone. And if you've done this long enough, you know that once the band is side of stage and the lights are dimming down and the intro's going and they're about to be on stage, that's showtime. Mm-hmm. And what happens in showtime is what happens in showtime. If an artist swears at you, calls you something, like at a certain point, people are on this edge. Their energy is like, it's crazy the amount of high energy in a band and on a show. So there's a difference between how someone treats you off stage and how someone treats you on stage, So it's no one's going to call you an ass or anything, but there'll be things where it's like the guitarist will get on stage, you look around, the amp's not going, and he's starting to freak out, and you're like, shit, I've got to fix this, and you go and fix it. String breaks, or you hand him a guitar and the capo's on the wrong setting for some reason, And there's times where, that'll happen and the band will be in the zone and they'll be like shitty and they'll have a bad gig and, and you'll come off stage and then, you'll chat and you'll be like, oh, this, and then everyone calms down and goes back to friends, Or generally 99% of the time the musician will come and say, look, dude, sorry for tonight. It's just, it's had a bad night. The thing wasn't working, and, and they know, it's like, I know you checked it. I know it would have worked. And you go, that's cool, I'll double check it tomorrow because maybe between this or this, or maybe when we plug in or something changes. So, but yeah, there's when you could would go, wow, that guy is so terrible. But you're like, that's just where we all at, that's normal. I've had some bands push that to the point where they've got 2,000 people to call me an asshole because something broke, but and they kicked over the rest of the gear that did work, breaking all of the gear, so they had to cut the set short and then told the audience it was all my fault. And I was like, oh, it's kind of sad. And that was when I was really kind of young, and I was like, shit. And it was a band that I idolized. Like, it was one of my favorite all-time bands, and it just shredded me. Like, I've never felt so. I just felt like my heart torn out, stomped on. And then, I got back to the hotel, and everyone called me, and they were like, what went on? I was like, well, a band we're touring with, Pods. The old original Pod Jelly Beans.
Okay. And
to cut a long story short, we'd upgraded to the new pods, the black pods, and we had them for a week. And I said, come to my hotel room tomorrow. Let's reprogram the new ones, get them all going, and then when the show's on Thursday, we'll be good to go. So Tuesday came around, no one came in. Wednesday came around, no one came in. Thursday at lunchtime, two of the guys turned up, and I'm like, okay, where are you? And they're like, well, we've turned up. I was like, I'm at the gig. I've already got the gear. I've got, the old pod. And they're like, the new pods don't work with the old foot switches. I'm like, no, they don't. It's on the first page of the manual. And it's like, well, you need to go get us some foot switches. So I hurriedly left the venue. I was in Australia. Went to a guitar store, and they were like, these don't even get released in Australia for another month. Like, there's nothing. You said you could try the old one. It's like, the old one doesn't work, and it says on page 1, these do not work with the old pedals. So the band was like, if we'd been there like on Tuesday, we probably would have been able to fly something out from the States from Line 6. But we had to start the show with gear we knew was broken, which is the reason we're replacing it. So we started the tour with gear that we knew was fraught, we knew would break down because it had been doing it. And that's all we could do. And then the gear broke down, and the band went apeshit. And the guitarist kicked over his rack of gear, which knocked over the working amp and knocked over all his wireless gear, which was working. And it was like, they blamed me, and I'm just like, I don't get this. But at the time, I was so stressed. I was like running around crazy. And as I was trying to fix something over here, they would kick something over there. And I was just like freaking out. I must have looked like just a crazed fool. I was like running backwards and forth, and my brain was like, I don't know what to do. If I just run to something and be like, just work, because I know I can't fix you, so just work, and it wouldn't. And the band finished early, and they were like, we got to finish now, and it's all his fault. He's the asshole. And I was like, and they walked past, the guitarist threw his guitar at me, the other guitarist pushed me out the way, and I was like, damn. And I sat down in the backstage, and the drum tech was like, don't worry about it. Just, it wasn't your fault. It's not your fault. You're fine. I was like, I just couldn't help but just feel so trashed. I went to the hotel, and I was packed all my stuff. I was like, they're gonna send me home, even though it's not my fault. I've tried to tell people, but I got a phone call from the tour manager, and he's like, what happened? I was like, well, the gear that's broke. He's like, yeah, I know. John's gonna come down. The band's gonna come down, and they came down and all like really apologetic, and we're like, we're so sorry. We shouldn't have done that. It was fucking really bad. And I was like, yeah, it kind of was. And another friend of mine said, who was on the road, he was like, don't ever work for bands you love. Don't ever work for idols, because when shit goes bad, it is going to destroy you worse than when a stranger, gets annoyed. When the band you idolize treats you like crap, it's just going to, your life is over. And it was kind of true. You have to figure out that there's a line, and if you have
to keep your personal preference away from your work.
Exactly, and sometimes you want to work with the bands you love, but then you kind of think, if it all goes bad, I'm the person that ruined the greatest band on earth. But at that night, it was their gear, and they all understood that shit was wrong, and we patched stuff together, and we got it working the rest of the time. And it was just them having a really bad night, and they were in the zone and reacted badly, but they did react heavily badly. It was kind of, and I learned then, I was like, you've got to, if you want to be in this industry, you've got to harden the fuck up. You can't let shit destroy you, because especially if it's not your fault, then I was a blubbering mess in my hotel room. I was like, what the, it's not my fault. Why am I to blame? Why did 2,000 people call me an asshole? And I was like, it was just horrible. It was my worst gig. But then kind of, it's just the sound guy who was kind of the tour manager came, and he was just like, you just get bad days. Suck it up. Fucking stop being a princess. Just deal with it. And he's like, and he said the funniest thing was watching you run. He said, you never run. You never run to a problem. He said,
No.
Running takes up valuable thinking time. He said if you run to a problem, by the time you've got to that problem, you won't have guessed or you won't have thought what to do. If you walk there, you can think, okay, maybe I'll change a cable, maybe I'll do this, and when you get there, you've got a plan. He said you just ran, and he said all we did was watch you run across the stage as shit went down. He said it was so hilarious. Like, people were just laughing and laughing at the front of house desk. So, yeah. So I try and teach that to my friend. I was like, don't run anywhere. Like, you just look foolish. Just walk. And also, you don't trip shit. I've watched a kid run on stage once and knock over 3 guitars in a line on stands, and I was like, oh, dude, that's so bad. So, yeah, so some nights you have a bad gig. But again, like, I learnt more from that one gig than I've learnt from 1,000 gigs with amazing mega bands that have just turned up and worked a plan, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So you've always got to try and find the core of what went wrong and what went on and what to do, and that changed my whole perspective on teching and touring and everything. And that was just like, shit, this is where I'm going to start from, not from all these shows that I've done that have gone sweet that I think I can handle. It's like, nah, you've got to, you put your game face on and you just go, I'm ready for shit to go wrong. You preempt, you think of every option that could go wrong, and then you're kind of ready. But if you just think it's all going to go sweet when something goes wrong, it just doesn't work. You've got to be proactive, not reactive. You know, like, we had wireless systems. So from that night on, I was like, I had cables on every single lamp. I had cables at every patch board. I had like stuff set up in place. I had spare amps. I went to the backline company. It was like, can I get 3 Marshall JCM800s? Can I put them behind the pods? Can I put a bass thing there? Can I keep this? Can I use this cat? And we would just basically rebuild the stage shows. So when we knew it would go down, I could just flip it out, and it was like, boom, it worked. So yeah, you just kind of learn that, you just got to be ready for everything, because you never know what's going to go on. And sometimes when it just goes sweet, you kind of just go, oh, that's sort of, you want a little bit of excitement. You want to shine. You want to be that knight in shining armor that can get out there and change the string and restring it while he's playing it on the guitar, and it's like, this is only the 3rd show I've done, but I've not succeeded in doing a quick fire round of questions yet. And oh, yeah. Oh, sorry, was that one question? Damn
that was one question.
Look at this. Okay, next question. I promise. You just hold your hand up when I have to slow down.
Over the camera like this. Okay, Are you ready? Let's do 3 questions.
Okay.
Who had the best sounding rig that you've worked with?
The best sounding rig? I would probably say one of the best sounding rigs ever was Sharon Jones and the Dat Kings. They had I can't remember the guitar. He's a guitarist. Even had his own Gibson, a big body cutaway jazz body thing, flat wound strings, 1 cable into a hired backline deluxe reverb from the backline company, and it just sounded exactly like what a 50s, 60s soul record would sound like. That was amazing. Other guitarists have had great tones. I think I did a show with Seether. His guitar was awesome. It was real brutal, just like that Mesa Boogie sound, but it just sounded like you plug it back in and you kind of go, that's why everyone loved them, because they just did that sound, and it's great. That's another great band. I'm trying to think. Probably let's go with that for now.
Okay, you can stop there. Okay. The next question was...
Someone may come back to me that would be like, oh, yeah, that band as well. But
you chuck it any time you want. Okay, this is the flip side of the first question. Who was the best group person to work with?
The best group person to work with.
It's not human nature to remember this, is it?
I really loved working with the Cranberries. It was, they were a really tight professional band. And, it was just, it was different. Like, I'd done a lot of sort of punk rock bands, and I've done a lot of, different bands, but that band on that level doing that kind of tour, and they'd reformed, and it was, that was really good to it, because it was just really nice to do a show where everything is professional, everyone is the job, everyone is there, knows what they're doing, you're there because you're respected to do what you're doing. I was drum teching for Fergal that tour, and it was just really nice, because sometimes you might do shows where it's just chaos, you're trying to hold your shit together, but the festival's not organized, the gear's not organized, or something's not right. But excuse me, that was probably one of my nicest kind of tour runs. It's just where you can kind of like breathe out and relax and just do what you're meant to do, because sometimes you have to spend so much time taking care of other people's dramas that you don't get to focus on what you're actually there. So good. Yeah. I really love touring. There was a New Zealand band called Stereogram, and I did 3 months with them in America, and that was really fun because it was just one of those tours where it was real good friends in a van, driving nonstop, doing show after show. We were supporting Yellow Card for about 26 dates. Then we were supporting Phantom Planet, who we just loved, and they were really good friends of ours.
That's the dream, man. Isn't it? It's just...
Yeah, and that was one of those kind of like, that was the perfect size kind of tour because... Yeah. Once you start getting into the bigger things and more people, and it can become a bit, you might suddenly start a tour with people you've never met before, and you've no idea whether you'll get on or like them or, and you might be on a bus with people who stay up all night or party or do drugs or something, and, and it's just, you're just there working. But that was just one of those kind of, almost the last kind of tour I did at that sort of size where it was just, a bunch of us in the van driving, finish a show, pack all the gear, drive through the night to the next city, and it was just one of those times where we just have fun. That's those, the dream tours. And I wasn't making big money, but that was almost like the pinnacle kind of era. It's when everything just balances just right. You can afford to live eating gas station hot dogs, and you're getting beers at the show. So it's just perfect. It was absolutely perfect.
Oh man, I felt like I was there then with you in the bus.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah, and I know it was even cool because I even made it like my hand is in one of the videos. Like at the last shot of a video we did for a song called Road Trip, there's a shot of my hand on the van steering wheel as we're like driving across some desert somewhere. So I'm like,
it's my hand.
Yeah, I'm like, that's my hand. I was there. Yeah, so that was fun.
All right.
Question. I'm not good at these quick fire.
It's really, really not going well, but it's getting some great answers, so that's more important. You've kind of answered all these questions that are, best tour bus anecdote. You've kind of done that, I guess.
Best tour bus anecdote.
Unless you've got another one.
I fell out of a shower once. I used to, when I was on the Warp Tour, I was with a band called Strung Out, and I was kind of guitar teching, stage teching, kind of semi-tour manager. I was kind of tour managing as well because we didn't have a tour manager. So I would basically be up every morning at sort of 7 o'clock, go to catering, get breakfast, try and get my drum tech awake, go and find out what the plan for the day was, where our stage was, where the backline was, get our stage time because you get that told in the morning. There's no set times. And one morning we had a shower on the bus. Not a lot of the tour buses back then had showers, so we had a shower. So I got up in the morning. No one else was around. I was having a shower, and unbeknownst to me, the bus had driven into the venue area, come off the road, and was driving across this field towards where we were parking. And for some reason, the bus stopped quickly, and causing me to fall out the shower door, through a slightly open door, skidding along the black tile floor, butt naked, and this bus driver was like, what the hell's going on? I was like, whoa, how did I get here? And there's no one else around on my bus. And I was like, holy shit, like that was just all happened way too quickly. I was like, this is just not good. I'm so glad there was no one else up because it would have been me surrounded by people in the front lounge skidding along naked. I was like, oh. But yeah, and I had another good one where one of the guys on the bus had night terrors, and I hadn't really experienced those before. So like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, he would scream out like he was being murdered, and I would be like jumping out trying to find what was going on. It would just be him, and they'd be like, "Just get used to it. It's fine." Oh shit! All those times where like I switched bunks. Someone always said, always get the floor bunk. Like just get the floor bunk because it moves the least because of the X of the bus. It's great. I had the floor bunk and I would just roll out. And then I shifted to the top bunk because there was a guy above me. And every day I'd be like, my curtain's coming off and the bunk's just starting to move and there's like this a little bit more of a crack. And I was like, I don't want this guy to land on me. He was a pretty heavy set Mexican dude. So I shifted to the top bunk and I'd forget I was on the top bunk and I would just go to roll out and fall like, 4 feet to the floor. I'm like, damn, I got to remember this. Like I should, that's when I used to drink a bit more, eh? Like I just think that was bad.
Right. Okay.
It's a good way to wake up though when you fall 5 feet and firmly hit a floor.
I've had a fellow band member do that, and So that was kind of his token gesture of the morning.
Yeah.
Okay, now with the other guys, I've done this desert island gear thing where they chose favorite amp, favorite guitar,
Yeah.
I'm going to do something different with you because I think you might have prepared this. I'm going to do desert island gig bag tools.
Gig bag tools. Okay. Oh, okay. Easy. First thing.
So you're only allowed, let's say 5. Is that too many?
Need like 2. No,
all right,
need
then
like
you're
2.
only allowed 2.
I'll just take a Leatherman. And
that's kind of cheating.
Why is that cheating?
I don't know. I just wanted to say it.
Oh, okay. If you want to do it in 5, I would take a flat blade screwdriver. I would take a Phillips screwdriver. I would take some wire cutters. And I'd take some fried chicken and some chocolate.
Okay,
there you go. That's all you need.
If it's Leatherman, it's just a Leatherman and some chocolate.
If it's a Leatherman and some chocolate and fried chicken, there you go. Like seriously, like you can nowadays with multi-tools, you can keep an epically good toolkit in your guitar case. Like there's a reason that you see everyone on stage, whether it's a sound guy, lighting guy, something with Leathermans on their tool belts, is because you can do everything with that. You can whip, and now that they've made so many good variations, whether they're Leathermans with side cutters or Leathermans with vice grips or things, like it's just that's wipe. And nowadays you can even just buy these kind of generic brand name ones for like $10-12 at your local hardware store. Like the reason why not everyone guitarist would have one, it just amazes me. You can spend some money and buy things like, I think it's Cruise Tools or Tech Tools do like a guitar multi-tool, which has like a string puller on it, wire cutters, different Allen keys. They're kind of handy to have, but generally, I just always kind of just really keep a Leatherman on me, and it's traveled everywhere with me. Goes every gig, every show. It's in my bag at the moment when I go to work. So, and I can pretty much fix anything. And if you're running out, if you're walking out to fix something in the middle of a show, you've got a Phillips screwdriver, you can whip a pedal off, check something, you can fix, if it's a guitar pickups come loose, you can fix that. Pretty much everything, aside from and having Allen keys on it. But when you're working with something the size of an Allen key, really small, it's not a rush job.
No.
But yeah, I mean, I would say if I could have 5 things, it would be a Leatherman and the 3 Allen keys that your guitar fit. That would be it. And there's nothing you really can't do, because what's on a guitar? It's either going to be a Phillips screw or a flathead screw. And some people, if you might go to a luthier shop where they have gauges and things to measure the heights or measure different things. But, you can do a lot of that by eye. Once you can look at your radius of your guitar neck and look where the strings are, if they're all sitting parallel to the radius, or, if the guitar neck's got a bow in it. So,
or you get at your SAE textbook and spend a few hours leafing through it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of I think people will be surprised the amount of things you can just go to a 99-cent store and buy and fit a really good toolkit together. Like the last time I went to the States, because I was not working, I couldn't take any tools with me, so I basically got the tour bus to stop at this Mexican 99-cent store, and as the band bought corn chips and Tapatio hot sauce and bus fresheners and weird trinkets, I managed to get like a set of wire cutters, a set of those small jeweler's screwdrivers, a screwdriver pack, and that was my toolbox for the tour, and it worked fine. Like, it was all I needed. I didn't have anything special. I could do everything on the road I needed, the setups, and I went and got a tuner. I think I bought a tuner from Guitar Center there, but when you have the luxury to take a lot of stuff, you just do. Like, when you're allowed to take stuff, you take loads of things and bits and extra tools, and you buy that one tool that just does that one job. But I think pretty much you can get away with those. I will add, though, I think an amazing tool that not enough people buy is ESP make this multi-spanner, it's called. It's you got one here? It's got like the 2 V's. Yes, that is absolutely groundbreakingly, phenomenally one of the best tools in the world, and not enough people know about them. You can use them for tightening up and down the nuts on a headstock for your tuners. You can use them for loosening up and down the the bridge pins for, your Gibson tunimatics and stuff, which you do not want to take a set of pliers or anything to those parts of the guitar because they scratch real easily. But that's amazing. You could fit that in a multi-tool in your guitar case, and there's nothing you can't do. Because that's the thing, people think, if you have to tighten if you found a rat on your guitar, your head all nut loose the time, and without, if you can tighten it while your strings are on with that, whereas if you're trying to get pliers in or something, you can't with a spanner. So
no, it's so low profile. It's
it's absolutely perfect.
And for taking knobs off as well, it's absolutely, it never leaves. I've got about 5, I think, if I'm honest.
We used to keep them on our what do you call them, carabiners, so you'd have your laminate and you just have one of those, because generally that could kind of do everything, and you could open a beer bottle with it if you were a drinker,
Yes.
So that's where will be my desert island tools.
Okay. We were going to do a half an hour chat and then do a second one after that to do 2 episodes.
Wow.
We're now running at an hour and 6 minutes, plus the 20 minutes of pre-recorded chat of setting the
babble.
So what I'd like to do is to end this part 1 there and maybe do a second part if you have the time.
Yeah.
And talk about some other stuff that you and I both share some views on. So I've enjoyed this so much because I've just sat here listening and enjoying. So thank you very much for this.
We answered 3 questions, so we kind of did okay.
I mean, my voice is still in great form because I've just kept quiet. So I suggest that we both take a little drink and come back for part 2.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Gavin.
Talk soon.
Big thanks to Gavin, and thanks to you for watching. We actually shot another show after that. That's going to be airing in a few weeks. If you want to see that, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, do all that if you really want to. Leave me a comment. Leave comments for Gavin if you have questions that can go through me. Otherwise, I'll see you in the future, and I'm a Guitar Geek. Bye-bye.